Hello, I'm David Breeden. I'm the Senior Minister at First Unitarian Society of Minneapolis, a historically humanist congregation, and this is Coffee and Wisdom. When we look at some of the past of liberal religions and humanism, what's going on now, and what may be going on in the future. Now, one of the main, almost holy writs among humanists, since we don't have any scripture, is the Universal Declaration of Human Rights from 1948. This is Eleanor Roosevelt, former First Lady and a social activist who pushed through the Universal Declaration of Human Rights through the UN right after the Second World War. And of course, the war was very much in the back of the mind of the people who were signing that at the time. Article 18 from that declaration says this: everyone has the right to freedom of thought, conscience, and religion. This right includes freedom to change his religion or belief, and freedom either alone or in community with others, and in public or private, to manifest his religion or belief in teaching, practice, worship, and observance. So as you see, this is a freedom of religion, freedom of thought, and freedom of conscience clause. And again, that's why it's almost holy writ among we humanists and Unitarian Universalists. So this week I've been considering humanism and the human condition. What is it all about in terms of the way we humanists think about things? And I defined humanism yesterday as humanism is a way of thinking and living that focuses on human action in relation to the well-being of sentient beings and the planet. Well, today I want to think about what this freedom of conscience means, because conscience is one of those words that's a little bit strange, actually. We've got consciousness and we've got conscience, and what's the difference? And this is a little painting from 1851 by Holman Hunt called The Awakening of Conscience. And we've got here a kind of classic Victorian scene. I mean, we've got the piano, we've got the clock in the glass dome, the heavy wallpaper, and et cetera. And here we have a young woman who is standing up, apparently getting off the lap of this playboy kind of guy, and she's staring up a little bit, and her conscience is awakening. Now, he's probably a bad guy of doing something not so good. Look at the expression on the cat's face. The cat doesn't like the guy. So there you go. But what is it that is awakening when we have an awakening of conscience? Well, one of the great stories in the Western tradition about this occurs in the Gospel of John. In it, you probably know the story. Jesus is walking and comes upon a group who are about to stone to death a woman who has been caught in adultery. It is the law of Judaism that adulteresses be executed. And so these old gentlemen are about to execute the tradition when Jesus comes walking along. Now, what they decide is, okay, we're going to see if this guy will somehow circumvent the law, and we can say, hey, he circumvented the law, blah, 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 blah. Okay, the response is this: he that is without sin among you, let him first cast a stone at her. And again, he stooped down and wrote on the ground, and they which heard it, being convicted by their own conscience, went out one by one. And you can see this poor fellow here. He's very worried, got the finger against his face here, wondering and thinking about his past ill deeds. So he's not going to cast a stone, and all of these wise fellows are going to go away. So what was it that awakened in their conscience that decided to go against tradition, go against the traditional laws, to say, wait a minute, I guess I really shouldn't do that? And that's one of the interesting things about the freedom of conscience that we talk about in liberal religion and in humanism, that it often does circumvent or go around or actively attack tradition. Again, my definition: humanism is a way of thinking and living that focuses on human action in relation to the well-being of sentient beings and the planet. Well, of course, the great conscience guy in the liberal religious tradition is Henry David Thoreau, who, yes, keeps coming up in these conversations because he is absolutely central to the way humanists think today. He wrote a poem in 1849. Now, Thoreau wasn't the most brilliant poet in the world, but he did like to turn his hand to poetry at times. And this is a little bit from that poem. He writes, I love a soul not all of wood, predestined to be good. Notice the term predestined, a little attack on the Puritan neighbors there, but true to the backbone, unto itself alone, and false to none. So a conscience that is true to its own nature. All right, born to its own affairs, its own joys and own cares, by whom the work which God begun is finished and not undone, taken up where he left off, whether to worship or to scoff. If not good, why then evil? If not good God, good devil. And so you see, Thoreau is thinking or saying that the affairs of the planet, the morality and ethics of the planet, yes, were set in motion by this thing we call God back there. But guess what? It's not done. And we people of conscience need to keep working on it, even if it appears that it is maybe going toward the devil rather than God, because again, stepping out of tradition. Also in 1849, Thoreau, of course, wrote his greatest essay, Civil Disobedience. This is the essay that inspired Leo Tolstoy and Gandhi, Martin Luther King, to work against the civil laws that are not quite so civil as they at first appear. Thoreau wrote this: a very few, as heroes, patriots, martyrs, reformers in the great sense, and men, sexist language, serve the state with their consciences also, and so necessarily resist it for the most part, and they are commonly treated as enemies by it. So people of conscience are serving the state by telling the state that it is wrong in its actions, all right? They are serving the state. Is there not a sort of bloodshed when the conscience is wounded? Through this wound, a man's real manhood and immortality flow out, and he bleeds to an everlasting death. I see this blood flowing now. And that, of course, is his call to arms in the essay Civil Disobedience, to begin to work against the traditions and break the laws because they are unjust laws in the eyes of individual conscience. Not the majority, but the individual. And this is very much part of what Thoreau is always about. And it's problematic in some ways and not problematic in others. But that is where the tradition of conscience in humanism and liberal religion comes from, is this idea that we have an inner light of some sort that tells us that these other external things are wrong. And we'll continue talking about where that comes from this week. One thing that you can join us for is Bibles and Beer on Wednesday night, a humanist Bible study. Glad to meet you there. We will be talking about a little bit about the Gospels and also specifically the first chapter of the book of Mark this week, and how that is part of the gospel story that's kind of ignored sometimes. If you'd like to see more of what we are doing at First Unitarian Society of Minneapolis, check out YouTube. We have two channels there, one First Unitarian Society and the other one Den of Conversation. Also check us out on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, and help us out financially if you can. Keep our voice strong by going to PayPal or firstunitarian.org/donate. Thanks a lot, and I'll see you tomorrow.